In this video, we're going to go over your Chapter 6 homework, problem number 7, which is the journal entries on the percent of completion method of construction contracts. What we're going to do is we're going to go down the journal entries line by line each year. So what I've done is I've put the numbers over here, since in your book they didn't put the numbers in with the journal entries. So I've copied down for each year the costs incurred during the year. We're not going to journalize the estimated cost to complete, so I just skipped that. And then I wrote down the billings for each year and the cash collections. What I'm also going to need, which I've already written down, is from the previous problems, all of the answers for the revenue and the gross profit that I'm going to need for my adjusting entry, and notice all of those are correct. So now, when I move on to the next problem, problem number 7, the software kind of hiccuped a little bit for a second. We're just going to, as I said, go down the lists one by one for the costs incurred, billings, and the cash collections. So for our first one, in requirement 2A, to record the construction costs, we're going to record our costs incurred. So to record the costs incurred, we're going to debit an account called construction in progress, which is an asset account, for $2,044,000. And notice in the instructions, they said to credit cash, materials, etc. for construction costs incurred. So I'm going to credit the cash, materials, etc. for the $2,044,000. The next thing that we're going to have to record is our billings. So we're supposed to record our progress billings. So to record the billings, I'm just going to debit the accounts receivable, and I'm going to credit billings. And notice the amount for 2024 was given in the problem, $2,170,000. For number 3, to record the cash collections, you should remember that from ACC 105, we debit cash, not the cash, materials, etc. We debit just the regular cash, and we credit accounts receivable. And that amount is for the collections in 2024, $1,885,000. Now, in the last part, we're going to have to record the gross profit and loss. So in order to do that, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to debit that account construction in progress. And we're going to debit construction in progress for the amount of profit in 2024. So our amount of profit in 2024 is $756,000. Then we're going to debit costs of construction, which is an expense account. So construction in progress is an asset, cost of construction is an expense, and that's going to be for the costs incurred during the year, $2,044,000. And we're going to credit revenue for the total amount of that, which should be the revenue, because the gross profit plus the cost should equal the revenue. So our revenue we're going to recognize in 2024. So we're going to credit revenue from long-term contract for the amount of revenue, $2,800,000. So notice how we've got all of those correct. So now we just have to repeat the same exact journal entries. So construction in progress, cash, materials for the $2,628,000 for 2025. Accounts receivable and billings would be the $2,502,000. Cash and accounts receivable, $2,600,000. And then we have our profit, we have our revenue, and we have our cost of construction. So let's go return to the question, and let's move on to requirement 2B. So under requirement 2B, we're supposed to record the construction costs for 2025. So this is in 2025. So we're just going down. For our construction costs, we're going to debit the construction in progress. Remember, that is the asset account for the $2,628,000. And we're going to credit the cash, materials, etc. for the same amount. Progress billings, $2,502,000. So we just debit accounts receivable and credit the billings. This amount is $2,502,000. Number 3 is going to be the cash collections. So we debit cash, not the cash, materials, etc., just cash, and credit accounts receivable for the amount of the collections, $2,600,000. Remember, we're in 2025 right now. And now remember the 3 that we have to do. So we have to debit the construction in progress. And we're going to debit the construction in progress for the amount of the profit, $972,000. We're going to debit the expense, cost of construction, for the amount that we spent in year 2, $2,628,000. And those two should equal the amount of the revenue that we recognized in 2025, which is $3,600,000. Okay, and we've got year 2 correct. Now let's just go ahead and do exactly the same thing for year 2026, or year 3. So return to question, and requirement 2C, record construction costs. So if we remember to record our construction costs, we're going to debit the asset account, construction in progress. Our construction costs in 2026 are $2,890,800. And we're going to credit the cash, materials, etc. Next one we have to do is record the billings, accounts receivable, and credit the billings. So our amount of the billings in year 3, $5,328,000. To record the cash collections, we're just going to debit cash. Remember, not the cash materials, just regular cash, and credit accounts receivable. So that's for the collections in 2026, $5,515,000. And finally, our adjusting entry to close out the contract at the end. So if you remember, we're going to debit construction in progress. For the amount of the profit, so in 2026, that's $709,200. We're going to debit cost of construction for the amount that we spent in year 3, which is $2,890,800, and the 2 should add to the revenue from the contract, which in 2026 $3,600,000. And there we go. And the answer is now complete and correct.